Professional wrestling is a form of entertainment that combines elements of athletics, drama, and storytelling. It involves 2 or more wrestlers engaging in scripted matches with predetermined outcomes. The matches are designed to entertain audiences. Professional wrestling is not a combative sport or a bona fide athletic contest. However, matches often include moves that can put performers at risk of injury. Many people, from wrestling journalists to fans, can argue what makes a match superior to another. Is it sportsmanship? Is it the precision of the moves? Is it the endurance of pain that a wrestler is willing to put themselves through to give fans a moment that they will remember for a lifetime? Joshi wrestling is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated forms of wrestling today. The things these women are willing to put themselves through to entertain a crowd is truly astonishing. The showmanship, pageantry, the competitive nature, the athleticism, it's all there. However, what these cute and seemingly innocent women of Joshi also inherit from their wrestling brethren is brutality. No documentary showcases this dark nature as much as Gaea Girls, a wrestling documentary released in the early 2000s. Gaea Girls follows the perilous journey of one Joshi hopeful named Saika Takeuchi as she journeys through the Gaea Japan Dojo hoping to become a star of Gaea Japan, a promotion founded by Chigusa Nagayo. The wrestling industry has always been a tough industry to break into, especially in the 80s. Even such stars as Hulk Hogan were not safe from this, with Hogan having his leg broken by teacher Hiro Matsuda. Matsuda would force his students to train for long hours to build endurance. His training would involve thousands of push-ups, squats, and sit-ups, trying to breed the perfect grappling machines. This would leave Hogan's legs feeling like rubber, until one day before he knew it, Matsuda would sit down between his legs, putting his elbow in the middle of his shin until a crack could be heard, and his shin bone was broken completely in half. According to Hogan, he felt that Matsuda's rigorous training was necessary at a time when few were given the opportunity to enter the world of professional wrestling. Hogan, undeterred, would not quit and returned to Matsuda's gym with a newfound attitude and would go on to be one of the most prolific professional wrestlers of all time. There's a lot to be said about this form of wrestling training. Does it produce some of the best wrestlers in the world? Absolutely. But is its long-lasting mental repercussions worth it? And while Terry Bollea, aka Hulk Hogan's story, would have a happy ending, other hopeful wrestlers would not be so lucky. Saika Takeuchi has self-esteem issues. She is shy, timid, and small in stature. Her biggest fear is living a life without purpose, to be forgotten. She feels that she is a nobody, trapped deep inside of her shell, and someone who is overlooked in day-to-day life. Saika is fed up with living like this and wants to break out of her shell to become a star that can be remembered for all time. She will endure mental, physical, and psychological trauma in her pursuit of this goal. If she can pass her test, however, she will be someone who is remembered for all time, a true legend of Joshi wrestling such as her heroes that have come before her. However, if she fails, she will go back into the realm of obscurity, never to be seen again. Saika Takeuchi trains in the Gaea Japan Dojo to become a star in Joshi promotion Gaea Japan, put together by Chigusa Nagayo. Chigusa puts her students through rigorous training that pushes them past their breaking points. There is no music in this documentary, making every scene feel incredibly tense. While the girls of Stardom are known for their pretty hairstyles and overall appearance, Nagayo is cold and calculated in her look, claiming that her style makes it harder for opponents to grab her hair. Chigusa Nagayo is one of the owners of Gaea Japan and top of the food chain. She is head booker and head trainer of Gaea Japan Dojo. She is barren without children, so she treats her students as if they were her own. The girls all live together in this cramped dojo. They eat, sleep, bleed, and train together. They give everything they've got towards the pursuit of their goal, and to make matters worse are abused at the hands of Nagayo and Japanese women's wrestling legend Meiko Satomura. You may know Meiko from her recent run as NXT UK champion in the WWE. She has wrestled in WWE as recently as this year and is currently a coach for NXT UK. So when you see some of the atrocious acts she commits in this video, keep that in the back of your mind. We see a new recruit named Wakabayashi arriving with her bags packed, ready for a chance at stardom, no pun intended. She failed her training and walked out last time, however she is back for one last attempt. Nagayo says that if she fails this time, she will kill her. There's a scene of the Gaea hopefuls standing in orderly fashion waiting on the arrival of Nagayo, essentially treating her like Japanese royalty. Definitely the type of respectful and humble champion everyone can aspire to be, am I right? We cut to clips of Nagayo versus her former tag team partner Lioness Asuka. The two were once known as the Crush Gals. This match is hyped up on a wrestling radio show as a match where if Nagayo loses, then she loses her entire identity. There are many hard to watch bumps in this match, showing the tenacity that these wrestlers have to demonstrate to survive the world of Joshi wrestling. We see a young Saika Takeuchi looking on at her mentor. Nagayo's face is entirely covered in blood as she struggles to fight on. We see the finish of the match featuring a spot like something out of an Atsushi Onita match as Nagayo gets the win. We cut to Saika and Wakabayashi training with Saika outshining her in every way. Wakabayashi is still unfortunately struggling with all of her workouts and training. Saika is seen hitting drop kicks onto kick pads, foreshadowing a horrific incident to come. Their training regimen is brutal, with Wakabayashi completely covered in sweat. She says her back hurts and is forced to do 30 more sets. We see the girls end their day with a meal as Wakabayashi is seen cleaning. The film makes it a point to show her sweeping a few times, but never really gives context to why it's highlighted. We then get to the next day as we see a sparring session between Takeuchi and Satomura. The somewhat playful sparring starts to pick up a bit as things become more and more stiff. Japanese wrestling is known for having a very stiff, hard-hitting style. If Takeuchi is to be a female Japanese wrestler, then she'll have to learn to accept it. She's put into a very rough-looking Boston Crab, similar to what Nagayo went through in her match under the bright spotlights. They cut to a very disheveled-looking Wakabayashi who just looks mentally slaughtered at this point, almost seemingly looking into the future of the horrific scene that's about to unfold. Takeuchi hits a drop kick that is immediately no-sold by Satomura. Takeuchi then hits another one with more force, knocking her back a bit. She hits a third drop kick with even more force. The trainer then decides to shoot on her for seemingly no reason at all, drop kicking her as hard as she can in the face. This leaves Takeuchi's face nearly mangled with blood profusely pouring out of her like something you'd see in Mortal Kombat. In wrestling, it's your job to protect your opponent, not hurt them like this. Sometimes receipts happen, like when Braun Strowman accidentally kneed Lesnar in the face, and then Lesnar unironically told him to feed these hands, but most of the time this is something that is heavily frowned upon in the wrestling community. So the fact that it's something that used to be common practice in wrestling gyms back in the day, and more than likely, unfortunately, even today, is truly disgusting to me. I can only comment on what the documentary has shown me so far, but Takeuchi has seemingly done everything right. She hasn't complained once, she's constantly working hard, she seems eager to learn. Unless there's something that the documentary isn't showing, all of this just seems to be happening due to some other malicious intent. To make matters worse, she is then mentally humiliated by her trainers, talked down to make her feel weak and useless. All over a dropkick that I've seen many Joshi wrestlers do a million times nowadays. Satomura was trying to seriously injure Takeuchi out of jealousy or some other reason. She was wrenching on her back during the Boston Crab, just bending and contorting her body in unnatural ways. Satomura even has the nerve to call Takeuchi unprofessional after committing the most unprofessional act that you could do as a professional wrestler. You want to be positive and think there's good intentions behind all of this, like the master just wants what's best for the pupil, but you can't ever truly know. And even so, there's always better ways for someone to become a better professional wrestler. You don't have to use mental and physical manipulation to get your way. That's legitimately what psychopaths do. Takeuchi is told to wash out her wounds as she cries over the sink. She is also forced to apologize if she hadn't already been humiliated enough, ending what is surely the worst day of her life. Nagayo admits that the attack was deliberate because Takeuchi didn't change inside. I don't know if some of this is lost in translation because I was so confused by this scene. She assaulted this poor girl because she didn't change inside. She is also told she needs to be geared up at all time and ready to go, and I'm assuming this means have her gear on, ready to spar at all times, but it seemed to me like she had appropriate gear on. If anything, this scene just proves my point that Satomura was rough with her just to make herself feel better or something. Whenever someone is treated like this, it has nothing to do with bettering them or teaching them some sort of lesson. It has to do with the person in power being insecure with themselves and lashing out at someone who is supposed to trust that they want what's best for them. Nagayo gives the typical speech about how if you're injured in a wrestling match, you have to keep on going. This is sentiment that unfortunately holds up today with how wrestlers like Jon Moxley are forced to continue, even if they have a concussion. Wrestlers should never have to be peer pressured into finishing a match when they have a broken arm or concussion. I feel like wrestlers are treated like circus animals at points, and I feel like there needs to be a discussion that most people aren't willing to have about all of this. There's no other art form or sport where a person is forced to perform at such a high level day in and day out, quite like professional wrestling. My point is proven when Satomura talks about how when you're injured you're not supposed to give up and just keep on fighting. She's speaking this way with malice towards Takeuchi, even though Takeuchi literally didn't give up. She's still here, still dealing with the mental manipulation at the hands of Satomura and Nagayo, still fighting her way towards being the best. None of this has anything to do with Satomura and Nagayo's training either. At this point they are just obstacles trying to stop her. After the belittling behavior from Satomura, we cut to a clip of a match and find out why she's so mad. She lost a big match in Gaea and she's very upset about it. A wrestler crying about wins and losses, geez, who does that remind you of? This scene could also explain why she was being so rough with Takeuchi. And yes, it could be spun that she was being hard on her just because she wants what's best for her, but it can just as much be assumed that she was bullying Takeuchi because she's upset about her status in Gaea, and there could be jealousy, etc., but that's just all speculation. Takeuchi is told that there are high hopes on her and that she will be the next big star in Gaea Japan, putting even more pressure on her. She is seen cutting her hair after being told she should worry about her image every day from here on out. This is probably the most lighthearted scene in the entire film. However, all is not laughter and happiness as it's revealed that Wakabayashi has ran off into the night. It seems that the abuse she has witnessed at the hands of Takeuchi and whatever else the cameras didn't even show us was just too much for her to handle. The girls are seen standing in a group with one rocking a pretty sweet Reservoir Dogs shirt, and Nagayo rocking some sweet Dudley Boys gear. Takeuchi will be undertaking her ultimate test, everything she has trained for up to this point. She will face 5 other women in a series of time gauntlet trials. If she is good enough, she will take her place in destiny as a Gaea girl. However, if she fails, then this is the end, forever. Takeuchi's first match is against Umatsu. During the match, it cuts to a very unimpressed Nagayo. Takeuchi is judged after the first match and told that she's not being quite desperate enough. She has to truly want it if she is to earn her spot in Gaea Japan. Her second bout is against Sakura. It cuts to a very confused Nagayo once again. Her third bout is against Nagashima. She is once again scalded by the president of Gaea for not giving it her all as tears stream down her face. Her fourth bout is against Kato. She's told that she's trying to do too much. So one minute she's not trying hard enough, then the next she's trying too hard. Her final battle is against Satomura, who is rougher on her than most. The other girls look on in horror as Takeuchi submits. Takeuchi hits some admittingly rough-looking forearms, probably due to being exhausted at this point, as she is decked with a shoot forearm right to the chest, caving in with a vicious thud as the timer goes off. She is asked by Nagayo why she didn't fight back as Takeuchi is once again in tears. After this mentally and physically exhausting test, Nagayo continues the abuse, slapping and hitting Takeuchi, telling her to go home to mommy and daddy. She holds her by her hair like a dog in front of the other students, almost as if to make an example of her. Takeuchi then follows Nagayo like a beaten dog, begging her to let her continue to train after failing the test. The other students are horrified, with one speaking up to the president that she can't continue this lifestyle anymore. While Takeuchi has such strong resolve to keep going, fighting through this tenacious hardship of Nagayo's training, this other girl's enthusiasm for professional wrestling has been completely shattered. Maybe this girl could have been the next top Joshi wrestler, but the physical and mental anguish was just simply too much for her. Takeuchi is allowed to continue staying at the Gaea Dojo and is offered a second opportunity. If she fails this one, however, then there is surely no going back. Another student tells Nagayo that she's out, seemingly from her treatment of Takeuchi. Nagayo is completely heartbroken by this, telling the girl she was like a daughter to her, but now considers her to be an ungrateful child. Nagayo says that she will never forgive her as the girl thanks Nagayo for everything she did for her. All the girls are upset as she leaves. It doesn't take long for her to be replaced, however, as another new trainee arrives named Sato. Sato's parents make the trip with her to make sure their daughter isn't going to be abused by some sort of sick, degenerate weirdo or anything. They are convinced that nothing shady or horrendous is going on here at all. The director of the film even makes a point of showing Takeuchi with her previous wounds of war. The girls all introduce themselves as they enjoy a very bizarre dinner from a hose pipe attached to some sort of sushi slip and slide. After dinner, it's back to more rigorous training. Meiko Satomura would actually make NXT wrestlers do this exact workout earlier this year. Takeuchi is seen training with a new recruit as the new recruit is struggling. She breaks down crying, already seemingly exhausted from the training. Takeuchi trains in the ring, throwing forearms at her opponent. They're a little better than last time. This unfortunately results in more extremely stiff strikes as a repercussion. Takeuchi is once again beaten with real-life shots that make the most sickening sounds. The new girl Sato expresses her concerns for the treatment of Takeuchi as she's told that they have to be rough on her if she is to train her second and final test. She says after watching the sparring that she can see why Wakabayashi left. Nagayo boops her on the head and calls her an idiot. If she wants to leave, then she can and be considered one of life's defeatists. Nagayo's words of encouragement do little to stop Sato, who seemingly ends her journey before it even started. Takeuchi is being interviewed because today is the day of her second and last chance at being accepted for Gaea Japan. She's asked about what she will do if she fails. However, that's something that she dares not think about. Her first bout is against Kato as she lets out a vicious scream, delivering her signature dropkick. She does a lot of screaming with dropkicks and a crossbody. Takeuchi showcases a lot more energy in these performances than the first test. Her second bout is against Satomura as the two lock up. Satomura delivers some very rough forearm shots and one of the sickest forearm tackles I've ever seen. Takeuchi fights her way to the bottom rope as a seemingly enthralled Nagayo looks on. Satomura slams her to the ground, hitting another disgusting looking armbar. Takeuchi makes her way to the bottom rope once again as the timer goes off. Her third bout is against Umatsu, who starts off the bout with an elbow to the face. This is then followed up with two stiff missile drop kicks. Umatsu hits a splash as Takeuchi kicks out in unique fashion. Her final bout is against Nagayo. So far, the stiff shots have seemingly been within reason. Of course, Nagayo has to come along and ruin that. She is Irish whipped as Nagayo clotheslines her seemingly as hard as she can in the head. Takeuchi obviously finds it hard to get up after this. She is put in a Boston Crab as she crawls for the ropes. Nagayo, then being Nagayo, gives her some incredibly hard to watch kicks to the head. Takeuchi somehow endures this just like she's endured this entire Gaea training camp and puts Nagayo in a submission. Of course, there's no way the owner of the company would ever submit and hits a shoot headbutt on Takeuchi. Nagayo then hits unreasonably hard to watch shots at Takeuchi, seemingly putting her down for good. Each thud that I hear gives me chills down my spine. An understandably distraught Takeuchi carries on only to be flattened by another stiff shot. She breaks down in tears once again as she is talked down to like a dog, even though she did exceptionally well in her final test. To make things worse is this fat Madman Pondo looking chubby bitch starts to hit Takeuchi over and over again. She accuses Takeuchi of being too scared to fight back, too scared to stand up to her and put her in her place. I couldn't imagine what must be going through Takeuchi's mind at this point. She seriously had some of the hardest moments in her entire life in this dojo. And to have to step into the ring with someone who you know is going to hurt you, who could very well end your life, has to be a special kind of mental hell that's truly nerve-wracking. Every time she was Irish whipped into these ropes to set up a move, I couldn't imagine the fear going through her mind, as she's basically decapitated by these clotheslines. It's truly the stuff of nightmares. Nagayo casually hits her in the top of the head and even gives her a slap, completely berating her in front of everybody. Even Meiko Satomura is disturbed at this point. The next day, the president of Gaea Japan is ready to give her decision to Takeuchi. She is informed that she is officially a member of the Gaea Japan roster. Takeuchi breaks down in tears, this time not over mental or physical torment, but sheer happiness. Not only does she get to be on the roster, but she will be making her debut at one of the most prestigious venues in all of wrestling, Korakuen Hall. All of her hard work till this point has been justified. What cannot be justified, however, is the treatment of Takeuchi by Nagayo. Nagayo tries her best to justify it, however, by comparing her teaching styles to how she was taught by her own father. She also tries to justify her abuse almost like she's building some sort of kayfabe storyline for the future where she wants Takeuchi to hate her enough to get revenge one day in the wrestling ring. I get where she's coming from, but it doesn't make it any less bizarre or disturbing, especially given the fact that she beat her up numerous times throughout this entire documentary. Takeuchi gets ready for her wrestling debut at Korakuen Hall, even trying on her new outfit. Her opponent is Satomura, as Takeuchi's mother watches from the crowd. She hits a series of running dropkicks on Satomura, screaming similar to her training. Satomura connects with some stiff shots to the chest. Satomura kicks her in the back as Takeuchi fights to hang in there. Takeuchi hits forearms at her no-sold as she's forced to go low with a drop kick. She hits a diving crossbody that is countered as she's dropped on the mat. She receives a hard forearm to the face that cuts away before it's shown as we see the reaction of her mother. She takes a moment to catch her breath before dodging one of Satomura's splashes. The match is competitive, with Takeuchi going for a roll-up only to be countered into an armbar. Takeuchi submits in her debut match at Korakuen Hall. Saika Takeuchi gave it her all. She endured tremendous hardships, being tested mentally and physically. All she wanted was to be someone, to be a star, a shining embodiment of the spirit of professional wrestling. She finally had the spotlight that she had so desperately craved. However, it seemed to be too much for her, with her flinching and closing her eyes over and over again. She keeps kayfabe by saying she's not happy because she was beaten. This is when she is asked the most heartbreaking question of all. Which wrestler does Saika Takeuchi admire the most? There's a brief pause before she hauntingly answers, Chigusa Nagayo. Chigusa Nagayo would have a long and prominent career in Japanese wrestling, surprisingly still wrestling to this day. Meiko Satomura is currently a trainer for the WWE. Whether Meiko still has this sort of abusive training style is unknown, but she's been featured prominently on NXT, even in a segment where her harsh training regimen is shown. Saika Takeuchi would have a very short wrestling career spanning 2 years. Allegedly, she had been suffering from head injuries. This would see her disappear from the spotlight, never to be seen again. While she wouldn't go on to have a memorable or even long wrestling career, I feel like she still deserves credit for giving it her all. She showed everyone that she could hold her own and didn't back down 1 second. For some people, however, some things just aren't meant to be, and I guess the scariest part of all of this is that after everything she fought for, the pain, the suffering, the mental, physical, and psychological trauma, it would all be for nothing, and she would succumb to what she hated more than anything in the entire world, becoming a nobody, and disappearing into obscurity forever.